Hey everybody! Welcome to another exciting episode of Ergo Pulse. I have none other than Joe Armenio of the Ergo Foundation, the one, the only.
And we have an exciting guest on today, Mick.
Hello.
And I'm actually pretty excited about this project because it's something that Mick is clearly passionate about. And when people pursue their passion and they bring that to the table, it's a different intent than just value extraction, right? It's creating something. And so I'm excited to learn about what he's creating.
Yeah, Mick, really good to have you. Why don't you tell us, what is Blitz TCG about? I mean, just give us a rundown of what it's all about.
Yeah. So the context here is trading card games sort of all came to fruition, as we were joking about earlier, probably in your teenage years, even though you're kind of old, right? It came up around that time. And, from that point, it sort of spiraled into this social phenomenon. You see folks opening packs of cards. You see folks opening digital booster boxes. You see all this sorts of stuff on social media. For me, even on my walls behind me, those are all cards hanging up. So I've been collecting cards since I was a kid, been playing video games since I was a kid. It's one of my first memories. And then, of course, I've always had a passion for technology. That all sort of spun into me looking at this space and realizing that, one, even though there's been attempts made at video games on the blockchain, unfortunately, a lot of them have fallen short. And, we can talk about the reasons why that is later on, but that's the fact of the matter. So with my game, it's going to be a little different. First and foremost, and I think it's important to reiterate this as we go, there is no pre-sale or anything like that of any kind. There's nothing like that. The digital trading card game, where the focus is on the game, right? The focus is on the game first, gameplay first. And so I want to produce something that sort of shifts the mold from what people expect. So what people normally expect is for me to sell you a product right now, right? Oh, he's made some cards. Cool, look at all his nice artwork, right? And then he sells me this product, and the game isn't ready for 2-3 years, if it even ever comes out. I hate that, right? As a gamer, I hate that, and I never want to put somebody else through that. So for Blitz, and we can talk about what it means to be a card game in a bit if we want that backstory. Maybe we can take a look at a few assets later and walk through it. But I want to avoid that entirely. So it's going to be a digital trading card game where we first build the game, and then we'll start selling the product associated with the game.
Well, very cool. Yeah, I remember, because I am old, remember the days of Magic, back in the 90s. Well, I guess before that, but back in the 90s, Magic was just like big, Magic sets, and you would buy this. I mean, it was a huge racket too, because the price of these cards sometimes would be astronomical. And actually, cards, personally, I actually was really into cards, especially when I was younger. One of the first, I was never into baseball cards. I was more into, I like, collecting Magic cards, but also another, like, my first card collection was actually I think it was the first official Marvel card collection. Came out probably in about 92-ish, around then.
Yeah.
It was this like limited Marvel card collection with holograms and stuff like that. Yeah, so cards, yeah, definitely been around for a while, and I guess they kind of go in and out of popularity, right? They're always around. They've been around for ages, but they just kind of like have their resurgence, then it just dies down, but then there's still a really tight community there.
Yep.
So yeah, it's really exciting to see this being built out using Ergo, using the blockchain.
Yep.
Because there's obviously really strong gamify element that could be derived from card gaming. So just give us a little bit more on the gameplay. I mean, how do you see the gameplay play out in Blitz?
Yeah, it's sort of a involved question. You mind if I share my screen a little bit? We'll show something on the screen here to help with this.
That would be
Absolutely.
great.
I'm sure some folks watching probably have seen my development videos and whatnot. One thing you might not have seen is what I'm showing on the screen. And this is sort of an initial mock-up of what the game board's going to look like. So many of you will be familiar with Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon. You usually have these play mats, right? You lay them down in front of you. Somebody sits across from you, and you play cards during your turn. So that's kind of what you're looking at here, right? So of course, you have your cards in your side of the mat on the bottom, and your opponent has their side of the mat at the top. The first thing people will probably notice about Blitz is there's kind of a lot of shit going on, right? Compared to your Pokemon or your Magic or even your Hearthstone or your Gods Unchained, whatever your favorite cryptocurrency or digital card game is. You have little minions walking around the center of the mat. You have a store that looks, kind of interesting over here. There's no deck. So, if you're a card game enthusiast, you're like, blasphemy. Like, where's the deck at, right? Like, where's the deck? And, God knows what this is over here, right? Like, nobody has any idea just from looking at it. And then you have these PFPs. So, a lot to take in with this. Start a little bit, if you don't mind, with some of the distinctions, just so you all can maybe ask me some questions about it, because I'd love to hear how you all take what I'm about to say here. So number one, there is no deck. There is no deck in Blitz. So one of the things that, as a competitive gamer myself, grew a large YouTube channel, grew a large Twitch channel, been playing games my whole life, basically, as we talked about. I don't like luck, and I don't like chance. Now, again, that's blasphemy from some folks with the card game, because that's a lot of appeal for a card game. It's that pseudo-random drawing of cards from some pre-configured deck. In Blitz, though, it's going to be a little different. It's going to be more like a MOBA. And a MOBA is something like League of Legends or Dota 2, where you're going to gain resources as the match goes on. And as you gain these resources, you're going to be able to purchase and acquire cards. You can think of them as like units. So this store is always going to be on the game board, unless for some reason maybe you want to minimize it. I don't know why you would, but maybe you do. The store is going to be on the game board. When it's your turn, you can purchase cards, and then you can play those cards, and of course, then it will subtract from your resources. So that's the first very unique thing. Like right away, there is no deck, and you buy cards based off of resources. Any questions on that front from either of you?
Yeah, actually, okay, so if there is no deck and you got the store to the left, right?
Mhm.
But I guess now it's to the left.
Yeah.
Is what's in the store, is that, predetermined, or is that random?
That is an excellent question. So the cards that you see in here will come from whatever deck you entered the game with. And so these cards, the majority of them will be tokens on the Ergo blockchain. So this is really the Ergo to Blitz integration is really the cards and the packs that you have to open to receive the cards. Maybe some other stuff we'll talk about towards the end of this call. But the primary goal for something like end of year or early next year is to set up the packs and the cards on the Ergo blockchain. That's what these would be.
Mm-hmm. Very, very interesting. Right. So, you want to talk a little bit about the tech behind this? What's under the hood?
Yeah. So the development's being done in Unity, which looks something like this, and I'll save us the pain of digging through. But Unity is a very well-known game engine for quickly creating games. There's other options out there like Unreal and some lesser known platforms as well. But Unity, I would say, for indie developers and small teams, it's the go-to. So Blitz is being primarily designed in Unity, got a C# coding base, and then we're integrating with Firebase, which is Google's platform to store your data. So like when to make this more real, say you're in a match and I don't know, there's a friends list button down here on the bottom right, and you want to message your friends. Well, your friends have to be stored somewhere. And the way that works in gaming development is usually through some sort of system like Firebase. So you store the data on this server somewhere. That's it, really, in a nutshell. So you have two backends. You have Ergo, which is one backend, and all backend means is database for those maybe not as interested in that. And then you have Firebase, as the second back end. And Firebase is going to run the website. It's going to run a lot of the multiplayer aspects. There will be a multiplayer server, but we don't need to talk about that. It's not worth getting into. And then you have the front end development, which is what you're seeing here.
Very nice. So why would you choose blockchain as a back end, as a developer?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And Dan, I'm be interested to get your perspective on this too, sir, being in the blockchain space. So, and NFT space more broadly speaking. For me, there's a lot of social unrest with the word NFT, the acronym NFT, and that is unfortunately, in my opinion, due to these social media influencers and projects that unfortunately have sort of tarnished the name. Because an NFT at the end of the day, it's still a blockchain asset, right? Like that's what it is. Just like you can give it whatever acronym you want, but it's a blockchain asset. Blockchain assets are blockchain assets. For me, when I look at a blockchain asset, when I look at an NFT, I don't care about the arguments about could we do this a different way. I don't care that it points to some hyperlink. I don't care. What I care about from a developer standpoint is what would be the alternatives. So the alternative to me using a blockchain would be me having to have to develop something like the Steam store where players could exchange, skins or something in some front end system like we were just showing on the screen. With the blockchain, that's already done for you, right? So as a developer, for me, the blockchain is this thing where it's like, man, I want a transactionary system that keeps track of transactions accurately and without being able to be hacked, i.e. the immutable aspect of it. Well, that sounds pretty great. I don't have to maintain it because it maintains itself. Cool. Like that's great, man. So for me, I think the perception we need to start pushing to people is to get rid of this social aspect that we have to and actually bring it more back to the technology. Like, well, look how cool this thing is, and look how quickly you can stand something like Blitz up using this as your backbone.
Yeah. I if you follow my latest work, you'll see that I'm in total agreement with you about
cool.
NFTs. I'm a huge believer that there's only a very small part of the NFT that's really being utilized right now, which is the IP side of it, which is basically, it's a digital representation of an intellectual property right. And frankly, I think that the true utility of the NFT is not mainly intellectual property representation. It is what you're doing. It is, well, in a way, what I'm trying to do with utility NFTs, which will utilize all these other aspects of the NFT that are just not being used right now. A non-fungible asset is very unique. One of the reasons why I am going with Ergo is because the Ergo NFT is so robust and so financially viable. So yeah, absolutely. I think that the negative connotation, it'll take time for it to go away. It'll take time. It'll take people like you that bring, something that's NFT based, that's utility based. And really, I think in the end, it's just going to be about just forgetting that it's an NFT. Don't tell people it's under the hood. Just show them that it's a cool game and you can do this and you can do that and you can do that in it, What under the hood should really not matter in the end. And so I think that's when we will be able to kind of gain this mass adoption or gain this, reach this mass adoption critical mass, is when we as developers can create products that will not kind of showcase and make blockchain and make NFTs like the main calling card of the thing. Oh, look, it's NFTs. Oh, look, it's the blockchain. It's like, no, oh, look, it's a really useful, cool product. Use it. Oh, and by the way, it uses NFTs in a blockchain, but really it doesn't really matter.
That's it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's it, man. I'm happy to hear you say that. Yeah, I want to touch on something you said about abstracting the technology from the user. You said, they don't necessarily care what's under the hood, and that's exactly right. I think a long-term vision for me with this project is, wouldn't it be cool if you signed up for my game, like you sign up for RuneScape or you sign up for World of Warcraft, and then behind the scenes, right, it generated a wallet address for you. It generated some other stuff for you on the Ergo blockchain. You go and buy a pack of cards on our digital store. You have no idea what you're doing, right? You're buying some cards, right? Then you see, oh, we have this, player-to-player exchange system, and you're trading cards. What you're really doing, without even knowing it, is using Ergo, right? I think that's when you've done it. Like that's when you've done it. Like that's when you. I mean, how many people can explain what happens when you swipe a credit card? I can't. I can't.
I say that exact thing. I say, and Joe heard me say this before. Haven't I said this, Joe? How many people know how to use a Visa card versus how many people know how the Visa network works and how many people care?
That's the big one. How many people care? That's right. That's right. Yeah.
The average person does not really. My mom does not care or want to know how the Visa network works, how transactions are settled, how currency exchanges happen. She doesn't care. She just knows that, oh, there's this really cool thing on Amazon. I'm going to use my Visa card and buy it, and it's going to be at my house. I don't have to use cash, and I don't have to go anywhere. That's all. That's what it's all about. Yeah. So I'm glad to hear you say that, because I've been really kind of pushing on that, especially lately, because I see that's like our our vice as blockchain developers, as pioneers in this field, because we are still early, to really kind of understand that even though we're excited about it, the average person just doesn't give a shit. But they will give a shit if it is something that they can use, if it is something that makes their life easier. Yep. And that's what it's all about. I mean, it's supposed to be, Joe says, right, Joe, that really what we need to go back to is the original idea of what cryptocurrency is supposed to be and blockchain is supposed to be, is like P2P, right? P2P cash is what crypto is. And that's really, I mean, to think about it, you don't have to think that it's crypto. You don't have to think about it that it's like funny internet money. You have to think about what that represents. I mean, am I correct in that, Joe?
No, it would be something that ideally it would work. Just that simple. It's like talking about crypto games, right? If you were to remove the word crypto and just say games, how many games out there no one would play?
Yeah.
That's one thing that I really do like about Blitz, because I can see he has passion about that particular style of game and that, aspect of gaming.
Yeah, I love
cards.
Absolutely. I really like the graphics. I'm really into that. It kind of reminds me of my old guy games. The old school. Well, not Civilization, but what does that look like? Masters of Orion. That's what it looks like.
I thought you were going to say Age of Empires. I don't even know what that is.
Age of Empires. Yeah, it does look like that as well.
That's cool.
But it's I really like that kind of player board feel, because you got the graphics from these classic player boards, right? I mean that's what you thought about.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And I don't have to share my screen again, but I think going back to that, making things useful for players in a setup like mine, where you have two sides of the field and you have all these other assets on the screen, there's no reason we couldn't put all that on the blockchain. Like, you want to trade the grass field for the space field, go do it, right? Go do it. Like, it's your field, go do that. Go do something with it. I think though, in all fairness, like the concept of using the blockchain to facilitate the trading of assets, which is effectively what a trading card game isn't all that interesting. And that, I don't know if that helps me or hurts me, but it's not, in my opinion. I think the cooler stuff is longer term, assuming things go well and are successful. And that's a few different things. One is card lending. The smart contracts have built-in of course, technology and whatever you want to call it that allow for that sort of thing. So if I wanted to lend a player my Margot card for 7 days because maybe it's too much for them, and it's just for whatever reason the game explodes, it's $1,000. Nobody. I wouldn't pay that much for the Margot card. I doubt anybody else would either. But maybe the people who own that card are like, well, I don't really play the game that much, but I don't want it to just sit here and do nothing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lend it out for like 1 ERG. You can use it for a month. Go have fun with my $1,000 card. That's cool, right? Play and earn. Play and earn. I don't really like play to earn, right? That's a I don't really like that verbiage that has become socialized due to like big players in this space. And I don't really point fingers at anybody, but like play to earn, don't like that because you're playing to earn. You're not playing to play, right? You're playing a game to play. You're not playing to earn. You're playing a game to play. God, I could talk about that for another half an hour. But play and earn just has a better ring to it. So that's why I use that specifically. Play and earn. So for Blitz, right, I'd like to have competitive seasons eventually. And for players that participate and they do really well, right, I'd like to have some reserve of tokens or some reserve of packs or whatever, right? And if they do really well, they get some of that, right? So then they're trying to be the best at the game, not only to be the best, but to maybe also get some cool stuff at the end of it. I know I'm talking a while here, but there's one other big aspect. So we have play and earn, we have lending, and I think the most novel thing that we can do that I have not seen done is using the blockchain to balance the abilities of cards. So when you go buy a Charizard from the early 2000s, the abilities of that Charizard are set in stone because it's printed on paper. And the other problem is in the digital card game like Hearthstone, those developers could change the card tomorrow and you don't get shit to say about it. But what if instead of that, right? What if instead of that, I took my Margot card and we had a 2-week voting period where I proposed 3 different buffs or nerfs or adjustments to the Margot card. And based off of maybe your play time, maybe on your token, maybe on the number of cards you have, whatever, the specifics don't matter. You get to vote on which balance change happens. So then this invokes like not only a player-driven ecosystem, but it almost gives the player power over the game, right? And I think that's special. I think that could be very special. And that just doesn't happen nowadays. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, I really, really agree with you on the aspect of, play to earn versus play and earn. I think that actually the whole idea of play to earn is making GameFi lazy. Because they don't think about the actual gameplay. They think about how to incentivize people with earning crypto and earning NFTs. And I just don't think that's sustainable.
Nope.
There's just too much competition. It's not sustainable, and it defeats the whole point of it's supposed to be fun, right? It's not supposed to be a job,
right?
It's not supposed to be just like, okay, the probability here is like, okay, so if I dump enough money into this thing, I know I'm going to win. So I absolutely like what you're thinking there with play and earn. Earning is good, but playing should be just as equally as an incentive to use the game, to play the game, as actually making any kind of income from the game.
It reminds me of like experience in games where you get some benefit from the experience of playing, and it seems like it's more for that versus paying the game.
That's right. You have to be careful because in this case, I feel like I can use their name just fine, but Gods Unchained on the Immutable X platform via the Ethereum network, they introduced play to earn. And what happened is their game got flooded with bots because they didn't put enough guardrails in place to prevent something like that. So some random dude made some macro or some fancy software that went in with 50 accounts on some 50 instance version on his supercomputer, right? And he just had it run for 24/7. And even though that bot probably didn't win, but 5 to 10% of the time, it still won sometimes. And because it won sometimes, this person sort of like, and people like that ruined the whole system. So that all is to say, sort of agreeing with all of our points here, if we implement something like that, to be very careful, right?
Yeah.
Because it has to almost be performance based, which is tough for some people to swallow. They're like, well, if I'm not good at the game, I'm not going to make any money. Well, do you like the game? I hate the game. Well, then maybe you shouldn't be playing my game, right? Maybe you shouldn't be playing my game, right? If you're just that's kind of like the whole circular, coming back around to the beginning, right? Well, if you're just playing to make money, maybe this isn't the game for you. Maybe you should go play one of those types of games.
Let me ask you something here. So give us some timelines. I mean, when can we expect to be able to play this? When is it going to be, good to go? And maybe later you can also tell us what are your, what does your roadmap look like, right? So what after you go, if you go, main net or whatever you want to call it, B1 with Blitz. What are we looking for? What do we have to look forward to beyond that?
Yeah, those are good questions. So the primary goal right now, bar none, is to develop enough of the game, both asset wise and mechanics wise and coding wise, to be able to alpha play test it. So what that does not require is actually blockchain, because we can make it all local for now to test it. The reason that's so important, and we'll talk about dates in a second, is because I don't want, and this is another mistake certain other people made, is that they didn't play test their game and they minted all of their cards. And then within a month of the game being out, 90% of them were banned because they were so broken. But again, the governance aspect of Blitz might be able to fix that, because then we could just airdrop the balance cards to all the holders of the old card based on a snapshot in time. And then therefore, your card that you really like the look of is still usable. But anyways, getting back to the train of thought here. So you have to play test it. So by the end of the year, my goal, and it seems like we're on track at this point to hit that. By the end of the year, I want to be able to distribute the game for play testing. So like send it to Joe, right? And Joe can create an account and he can queue up for matches online against me and other people and just like play around, play a couple games, and then provide some avenue of feedback. And I think I will try to incentivize that for people. Although it sort of goes against what we were just saying. The fact of the matter is I need play testers. Sometimes play testers need to be compensated. So I got to think through that a little bit. Some people will just do it because they want to. But I actually want to get people in there that want to sort of screw it up, right? They don't want to go in like, I love Blitz. Like Blitz is the best thing ever, right? I love those people, but we don't need them as much in when we're trying to play test, right? So anyways, that's at the end of the year. And then Q1 of next year is when I would like to start selling packs. And everyone, that's the number one question I get on all the social platforms is like, when? WEN, when? And I would say Q1 of next year. The funny part is, just as an aside, the development of the game, I don't think is going to take as long as the card art, because card art takes a long time. I have a team of 8 artists, and I've only finished about 30 cards in 2 months. And I need about 150 to 200 for release. That's with 8 people, right? 8 people. So that's like, to me, that was eye-opening. Just how long some of this stuff takes. Now, mind you, I tried to choose good people. So good people want to do good work. And if people want to do good work, it usually takes time. So that was for me a growing moment. I started to realize like, man, doing something like this is a little bit bigger than I expected. But anyway, so next year maybe we'll start selling stuff. We partner with Ergo. They're doing all the contract work. I work with Marty and Louie and a couple other folks from their team. I delivered our card rarity distribution because you all know when you open up like packs of cards, you get holographics and stuff. We're going to have a similar system to that. With the blockchain, that's kind of interesting to have to do in a smart contract. So they're going to have to take a pack token, and there's going to be 3 different types of packs. If you buy the one that's a little more expensive, you might get a little bit more rarity. But then you have to account for all those permutations in the contract, right? And with Ergo, because it's a UTXO model, we have to do, and the Ergo pad guys will probably slap me for even trying to talk about this because this is not my area of expertise, but you have to do a bunch of pre-minting. So we're actually going to have to mint, like, let's just say 1 million of each card and sort of keep them in like these buckets. And then when a player goes to exchange their pack, it's going to pull from those buckets. And that is how we're going to do this hack opening on Ergo at a very high level. So anyway, I'm sure you guys know probably more about that than me, how it all works. But that's the short term. Long term, after if revenue starts coming in, right? That's one of my big risks. I made this big old PowerPoint slide and I talked about it very transparently. I think we all appreciate transparency on this call, every single one of us. It's a big deal. It's one of my principles for the game is transparency. There are things that could cause the game to fail. It's entirely self-funded by me, right? There is no pre-sale. Like when you talk about funding, you talk about Mick's Chase bank account. Like that's that's the funding for the game, right? And although we're in good shape, if revenue doesn't come in and people don't pick it up, that's a risk. That's a risk everybody takes. If a recession hits and unfortunately people in the US lose their jobs or some other sad thing happens, COVID comes that nobody expected, that's a risk. So I won't talk about all those here, but let's talk about ideal state. If ideal state comes, we sell packs. I'm able to get some recurring revenue in for the company, and I can keep the development teams on and all that. I'm not going to give a hard date, but certainly can do a proper beta release so that beta means a playable game for the masses. When I say beta, sometime next year, and it'd be after Q1 specifically. It won't be before Q1. It'd be after Q1. So a lot of assumptions there, but that's the transparent answer.
Well, it's hard to build stuff. you
Hard.
know? It's always easy to do stuff in your head, and then when you get into reality and try to bootstrap it, it becomes a lot more complex.
Dude, and I just can't put shit together, man. Like, meaning I refuse to show people something that I don't like, man. Because everyone's like quickly code it and get it functional. I don't want to use it when it doesn't look good, right? So like I'm sitting there making the scroll bar like fit perfectly where I could have been coding something else. It's just that's something I need to maybe change. But I don't know that. Then what I do show, I think, excites people, right? Because they're like, oh, that looks pretty clean. Like that looks the way it should look. So there's probably pros and cons there, dude. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one.
I don't know. I think there's a lot of like 8-bit low quality stuff that's packaged and thrown out at the door way too quick in the crypto gaming stuff, to where I look at it and it's like, yeah, I don't, if there weren't an incentive here, like let's say the cards on your wall, right? You've played that for how many years? Have you been involved in card games?
Over here? Yeah. Behind me? Oh my God. The ones on the walls, they're all great at cards. I did Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Card Fight. I don't know, dude, forever. Like, but professionally, because this is an aside. I don't mean to go too far into this, but the reason I have money to even do this, if you're curious, it's not because I'm some like trust fund baby. It's because I actually flip trading cards. So what I do is I go buy people's collections and I get them graded by a grading agency, like the people who verify baseball signatures, and then I sell those cards for a much higher percentage than they're worth, after I appraise them and move them through that process. So I was one of the, you saw like, what's that YouTuber? That's so bad. I don't know his name. The blonde haired kid. He always buys the big fancy Charizards and Pokemon cards. He like boxes and stuff. Jake Paul and his brother or something. Anyways, that only became popular like in the last 2 years, but I was doing it for like 7 years before that. So all of a sudden, all my trading cards, dude, like my $100 card, you talk about like crypto mooning. I'm not going to give figures here, but like it is on par with that, if not more, right? With trading cards. Like if you were in trading cards 7 years ago, and anybody that's watching this video that knows can verify it confidently, like you're talking proper 100 to multiple zeros being added onto that, depending on the card that you have. A Black Lotus from Magic the Gathering, Dan, that's $1 million card. PSA 10, graded a 10 now. It's $1 million card. $1 million card, right? So that's the kind of money you're talking. So all my funding for the game comes from that. It all comes from that.
Yeah, it sounds like with me in comic books, you got the same thing in comic books. You grade them, and
yeah,
you have you got like the first appearance of Punisher. I think it was Spider-Man 127.
Yeah,
and I mean that thing was. I remember that thing hanging up on the comic book shop's wall for about $150, maybe 15 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
Now that thing is insanely more expensive. I looked it up, and I'm like, shit, man.
Like, whoa. Yeah.
That thing was hanging on the dude's wall for sale for $150.
Yeah.
For years, and now the thing, I think, I mean, I could be mistaken, but I think the thing is worth like maybe $100,000 or something like that.
I'm sure. Graded. I'm sure. Yeah.
Graded. Yeah. If you got to grade it in 9.7 or like over 9.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Like, or I mean, the like Batman #1. I mean, that thing is in the millions.
Yeah.
You got the original X-Men comics that are also astronomical.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm talking. I mean, I haven't really followed the prices for too much, but yeah, a lot of the stuff that I remember these prices when I was really into comic books back in the 90s and early 2000s. I was still into it. Even when I was growing up ish.
Yep.
I was still into it, and I remember the prices. And now I look at these prices, I'm like, the what?
Yeah, dude.
What?
It's crazy, and everyone's like, they're going to come down.
Is this in dollars?
They came down some, dude, and everyone's like, oh, this was just a bubble. They're going back up again. So like, it's just now. I think people realize what I really think happened is, I called you old earlier. If you're old, I'm a baby, right? Like for me, for the babies. We're people in my generation are hitting their 20s, their early 20s, their late 20s. I'm in my late 20s, almost early 30s. But like these kids, which is what they are. You think about it. What did they grow up with? They grew up with Pokemon. They grew up with Yu-Gi-Oh. They're getting jobs. Okay. They're 21, 22. They're making 60, 80 grand a year if they got a really good job out of college, right? Successful career. Good for them. What's one of the first things they want to do, man? They're like, oh shit, I can afford all the stuff I never got when I was a teenager, right? I mean, that was me. That's literally what I did, right? I went on Amazon, started buying a bunch of Yu-Gi-Oh cards, like nerding out on Amazon. And then from there, I realized I went to eBay to look up some stuff I'll never forget. And I was looking up stuff, and I saw like a $5 card, and I saw a $500 card of that same card, and I'm like, why is this $500 where I can buy 100 of them for that much? And then I looked into it, I learned about it, and that's what I started doing. So then I would go buy like 100 of this card, and I'd look at them first to make sure they're going to get a decent grade. I'd send them all in, and if one of them got a 10, it paid for the entire purchase. Right? You can't really do that as much anymore. But that's how it was. Almost like getting in early on crypto, right? Where you thought through it a little bit. More maybe than some folks in that era, but very fortunate that I stumbled across that just because of me being a nerd, basically.
What about you, Joe? What do you? I mean, like, what oddities do you collect? I mean, do we want to know?
Chainsaws. I
Chainsaws.
I live in the forest, man. Chainsaws and
Wow, if it came from anybody else but Joe, that would sound extremely creepy.
Oh man.
Like, yeah, I got me some chainsaws and a big shed. You want to come up to a mountain log cabin?
Oh,
All right, Mick, listen.
yeah, man.
Okay, so what I want to know here is that this is going to be community driven, right? So we're community very community heavy, I can imagine. Yes. I mean, the community behind this, or has to be a community behind this. Yes. How are you going to go about really kind of structuring the community? Is there a community already? If there is, how can somebody join the community? What kind of would be the general feel that like the right person? Who's this for, really? I mean, I mean, it's obviously not for everybody, but you do have a really, I really think that this is something that can get a pretty damn good following if you just target the right people. So, like, who are those people? How do you target them? How will you target them? How can somebody get involved right now, even before the game is out? Like, say you wanted to stress test the thing, you wanted to you wanted to send it out to people. I mean, how can people get involved in that?
Yeah, all good questions. Let me start with the community. Want to give a shout out to the Ergo community. Just know that it might seem a little silly to say, but the only reason I'm even on Ergo right now and not a different blockchain is because of the community. There were 2 competing blockchains at the time that had my attention for this project. And the other one is super well known, becoming very well adopted. But the community was just not great, man. And, I showed up to the Ergo Reddit. I've been a member for over a year. I know most everybody on it. I think most everybody knows me. And that made the difference. I had tested some early apps on Ergo, and unfortunately some issues cropped up where I lost funds, like a substantial amount of funds, about 500 Ergo. And they reimbursed me for all of it because it was a bug in their app. I'm not, naming names on purpose here, just in case they didn't want me to, but just know, that's the type of people we have in this community first and foremost. I know you two know that, but if anybody's watching this for the first time, that's what you're coming into when you join this community. So, for me, community is a huge, maybe the biggest deal as to why I'm even here. So there are a few things, if you don't mind me quickly sharing my screen again, I'll sort of walk you guys through it. I think it's always nice to see stuff. You have the YouTube channel here. And the YouTube channel is very well along. Subscriber count is ticking up. It's only been active, I think, for a couple months now. And I've started posting more videos to it. So you can check out our soundtracks, speed drawing. You can look at our development updates and more conversations like we're having here, and all sorts of stuff on the YouTube. So YouTube's really good. Twitter is where I'm most active as far as social media, like proper social media, running some social campaigns. I have set aside money for marketing, which I know is like the most passionate thing the Ergo community is on about for the most part. When it comes to improvement, I literally spend, I won't give a figure, but I spend money on marketing each month for both YouTube and Twitter. So supporting us there would be really good. A lot of good people have been involved with that. But that all to say, I think my most passionate and accessible, if you want to get a hold to me, place for engagement is the Discord. So the Discord for Blitz, I don't know, it has something like 300 members now. And it has a lot of people. It could be more active. I post art here. I post project updates here. I told them I was doing this. So if you're really passionate about the game, you want to check out like the latest card art, you want to check out like my thoughts on things, like whatever it is about anything related to the game, Discord is the best way to get a hold to me. And probably the rest of the community. Our whole team's on there. If you don't mind, I do want to do a quick shout out while I'm sharing my screen here, to just show everybody the team. If you haven't read our white paper, because it's 20 pages, I probably wouldn't read it either. But the team is really, they're really cool people, man. Max is from the Ukraine. He just had a baby. So congratulations to him 2 days ago. He's my main UI artist. Great guy. Felicia, she does a lot of the cool concept arts that you've seen. Clarence, I mean, he's literally a genius. And he has composed most of our music. We have a website developer, Yassine. Many card artists, I won't name all of them, but we have 8 card artists, each of them equally talented in their own right, and they each have their own unique styles. So if you see anybody here, you're like, man, I'd really like to work with them. I'm sure they'd love to hear from you, and they're all great people. That's where I'll leave it with the community. That's what we got going on.
Well, that's very cool. I mean, looks like you put a lot of thought, a lot of time into building this up. I just, I'm really blown away by the amount of work that you've put into this. Really like the art. I really do. I mean, what do you think, Joe? That's some good work right there, isn't it?
I think it shows quality and passion. Just that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those are two things you can't fake.
Mm-mm. No.
Yeah. I mean, it shows. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it shows that you've done this for a long time, that you have this vision, right? It's not just kind of like, so there's like this thing, and then we all moon.
Yeah.
Because a lot of projects are like that. You know that, right, Joe? We've been in the space long enough. It's like, okay, so first I am going to make a token. And then I'm going to mint a bunch of NFTs.
Right. That's right.
And then
you're going to write a white paper with crayon.
and there's a white paper. And it's probably going to be white. And then moon.
Yeah, that's so funny.
That's true.
And then moon.
Yeah, it is true though. That's the problem. I mean, hopefully you guys and I hope people like me and people like Charles and Kushti and all these figureheads can help fix that. Because we got to set a better example for people. We got to show folks that you can do it a different way. You can do this a different way.
Joe is definitely a figurehead. Okay, he's I'm really glad I'm getting Joe more and more, in front of the camera, because people are like people really like Joe, and Joe really needs to kind of be out there more. He's a really good voice for Ergo. I think that you, Mick, are also an awesome voice for Ergo, and just for generally what really should be the attitude behind creating blockchain, blockchain backed applications, NFT backed applications, or not just on Ergo, but in general.
Thanks, man.
You get gameplay first, right? You think of the actual experience first. You don't think about, we're just going to blockchain this stuff, or like, the tech is really cool. I'm going to write a bunch of smart contracts and I'm going to do this. So it's cool, obviously, the tech. Okay. But again, we cannot go with that all the time. We can't sell everything just on tech. And I know, quite a few people in the Ergo community are going to say, but Dan, but we have great tech. We do. So let's use it. Let's use it to make this really, really cool stuff that's supposed to change the world, because talking about tech is not going to change the world.
Mm-mm.
Using the tech, utilizing it for real world applications, that's what's going to do it.
Use it the right way.
I know Joe, Joe, you're just as passionate about that, I'm sure. I know you are. Mm-hmm. The way you speak about it all the time.
Yeah, the difficulty in this space is oftentimes the incentive comes before the plan, to where
that's it.
you know, as to where if this game was not on blockchain, it would, you know, it versus is on blockchain, there shouldn't be a difference, right? And a lot of the things that are built on blockchain, if there was not blockchain or some profit incentive, I don't think anybody would touch it.
Yep. I think you're exactly right, man. Yeah, we gotta show
Quality.
I mean, we gotta show quality. We gotta show people that we just need more examples to point to, man, because there's not that many. That's the problem, right? You try to find like these, and I'm not trying to throw anybody on the bus, dude. I'm really not, but like, there's a lot of NFT projects out there, like just from the sake of like, hey, we created these, you know, pixel art characters. You know, it's cool. Like, all right, cool, man. Like, cool, all right, but what are we gonna do with that? It's just kind of saturated for me right now. It's lost its luster, and it's causing. This is the problem. It's causing the normal people to hate it. Like
Yeah.
I can't go to Reddit for developer questions. I can't because people shoo me out, right? Because when they look up what Blitz is and they see anything associated with a blockchain, they automatically hate me. Hate, and I mean that. I mean hate. Like the kind of social media hate, right? Like they hate it, and that's because people have ruined it, right? They've ruined it, and it's a shame, man, because it's such a powerful technology. Man, I'm very, as you can tell, I get heated. I'm starting to sweat, right? I'm getting upset because that bothers me, man. That bothers me. That's what I think about at night, right? Like that's like how to fix that. I don't know. Maybe people like Charles and them know, dude. You know, somebody who's
I think it boils.
deep in it.
I think it boils down to quality. When you have cheap stuff that's just made for a quick buck, it gets old really quick. There's variety shrinks. There's not a lot of creativity. There's not a lot of usefulness. You know, and so it generally turns off the public versus encourages them to adopt it. You know, if I weren't in crypto, I'd probably, you know, look at all the different, you know, NFT monkeys, apes, you know, feels whatever, and be like, what's going on for X amount of money? You know, it seems you know like mental illness than you know, ability. But versus you can plug these things into where they're useful and they work and they're fun and people want them, but they will.
Yep.
And blockchain is just the back end. It's not the front.
That's it, man. That's it. Yeah, we just.
I mean, even with.
Go ahead.
Yeah, even with the regular, you know, the JPEGs, right? The JPEGs, the NFTs that are everybody, you know, a lot of people who don't like NFTs kind of make the, you know, the scapegoat for it's like, oh, that's why NFTs are a scam. They're a scam. Even with those, you know, a lot of times what I will go for is not. I won't go for an NFT because I think is going to be valuable. I go for it because I like it.
Right.
I like the art. I like the effort put into it. I like it that it's not just a cash grab. It's like somebody actually put time into this. You know, they did the art. They made it interesting. They made it different. And I feel like I want to own something like that, not because I think it's going to moon, but because I just like looking at it, you know, and I know that the one that I have is unique.
Yep. Yeah, that's it. That's how I feel. I mean, that's why I love collecting. That's literally why I do it. It's because I know that card is unique. I know that other people would like to have it. I know that somebody designed all that stuff you said, man. It's just like, and we can mimic that. We can mimic that if we do it right, but it has to be done right. It can't just be, here's this random generator where it mixes 16 different faces together and you might get one of the rare faces and somehow get that thing. You know, it's got to be better than that, man. It's got to be better.
Yeah, absolutely. Raise the standard. And, you know, that's what I think you're doing. You're kind of raising the standard of the entire gamify, NFT-based, blockchain-based gaming with this. I really hope that the people watching this will follow your YouTube. We will give them information after, you know, all this information is going to be at the bottom of the video down there when down there is down there. Now I'm just pointing at the floor. But there's going to be information down there on how to connect with Mick's YouTube channel, how to get on his social media, how to get onto his Discord. I'm getting on there. I mean, you sold me on this. I really, really dig this person. I mean, and then this is not just BS. I mean, I really do like what you're doing. I really love the art. I really like your concept. So you got me sold. I don't know, Joe. I mean, is this as cool as chainsaws or?
Yeah, no, listen, passion can't be replicated. You can't artificially do that, in my opinion. And when it's there, it shows. And so the first time I saw Blitz, I started looking into what he was doing. I was like, hey, this character has passion.
Thanks, man.
This character definitely does have passion. He definitely does.
Yep.
Well, guys, it was a pleasure to have you, Mac and Mick. I was going to call you Mac. I don't know why. You're Mick. Funny story about that. I was talking to my co-founder for Zengate. His name is Sam Lambert, and I think the other day I was kind of tired, and I called him Joe in a meeting. I'm like, all right, Joe, so let's talk about that later on. He's like, Joe. I'm like, oh shit, yeah, you're not Joe, you're Sam. All right. Yeah. Well, Joe, so you're running. You must be tired because you've been running through my mind all day. That's a really nice and weird point to leave this off.
Don't cut it out because I loved it.
Oh yeah, no. This is staying, okay?
Good.
Andy, this is staying. All right. And when I say that, okay, you have to cut. All right, Mick, it was great to have you. Hopefully, when you have more progress on the game, when you have another milestone, you could come back.
Yeah, man.
Show us more. Maybe when you're expanding, it would be great. Joe, do you have any final thoughts like Jerry Springer did?
Then have a conversation to see what I can do to help. Open source code. I'm on the team.
Thanks, guys. No, I certainly appreciate you both, and again, another shout out to just the community as a whole, because so many folks there are supportive. So if anybody's thinking about doing a project and you're just stumbling across this video, give it a shot, man, because there's so many people out there like the great folks on this call and just on the Reddit that, if you say you have an idea and it's a good one, I bet somebody will help you. Like, I bet they will, like, if it's a good idea. So, take the shot. Take the shot.
Yeah, especially in the Ergo community, because the Ergo community is.
That's it.
I just love this community. It's so nice and really help. I mean, I don't really see any drama here. I mean, once in a while we'll have some disagreements, but there's none of this, like, everybody's, breaks out their daggers and ready to fight type of thing.
It's unique. It's unique, man. It's special. I mean, we have 20,000 members on Reddit right now. That's hard to do, bro. Like, after 20,000 members, things they normally get pretty bad. So it's great Reddit, over there.
Yeah, Reddit is like the epicenter black hole of toxicity.
It's bad. It's awful. So, but the Ergo Reddit is one of like 3 communities I actually follow, because it's not. You ask a question, you get a damn answer. Imagine that. Like, you actually get some good answers.
Amazing concept. Amazing. Well, guys, I think that's all the time we have for today. So again, it was a pleasure to have you, Mick. Thanks a lot for joining us. And we'll be definitely following your project, and all the best.
Thank you, gentlemen.